I think it is the perfect time of the year to sit back, roam through Tyria, and look at a wide variety of different spiders we can find in the game. From deep inside the caves into the open wilderness, there are a lot of different spiders that we can look at in Guild Wars 2, but today I want to go over my top 10 personal favorite ones across the entire game. So let's get started. In the number 10 spot is the Black Widow. Black Widows are a common spider that you can find in many games, but in Guild Wars 2 they are actually decently rare, where Black Widows are spiders that are specifically from, or at least thrive in, the underworld, where their model is really cool looking and definitely intimidating to see charging at you when you are fighting them. In Guild Wars 2 we can see them in Dragonfall in the Grith related area, and can also find them during the Departing story mission during the Path of Fire story, so we don't see them too many times in Guild Wars 2. But if we look at the original Guild Wars, we can see them around the Underworld, which is one of the, if not the hardest area in the original Guild Wars, and is definitely memorable for that reason alongside other reasons like Doom and these Black Widow spiders. Where in the original Guild Wars you can tame Black Widows if you are a ranger, and with the Eye of the North expansion you can get a special statue in the Eye of the North to display the fact that you tamed a Black Widow. We're moving back towards Guild Wars 2. If you have earned 30 points in the Hall of Monuments in the original Guild Wars, you can get a Black Widow spider pet in Guild Wars 2 if you're playing as a ranger, which mechanically is identical to a jungle spider pet, but it just looks super cool and is relatively prestigious. In the number 9 spot is the Pummel Spider. This is a newer addition to the game, coming with the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, where this is just a super creepy cryptid creature that you can find throughout Inner Niles. There isn't too much going on with these enemies, you can just find them everywhere, and they are average mobs that you can kill without too many issues. But if you take a moment to look at the model, they are kind of crazy looking. You have the basic cryptis elements that we can find throughout the body, but if you look at the 8 different legs around the spiders, you can see that they are actually arms and hands, where there are 8 different hands that are making a fist, which the spider uses to walk around on. And of course, each hand is connected to an arm, and each arm has some sort of bracer attached to it, where this model is just super unique looking and definitely caught my eyes when I saw it while exploring this map. I guess I'll also give a quick shout out to Eparch, who has 2 different models, where his model during the meta event in Inner Niles is representative of a spider. In the number 8 spot is the Champion Blossom Weaver. This is another super cool looking spider, but this time from the End of Dragons expansion, and there's actually a lot going on here. First, location. You can find her in Zindai-Jun in the Saitang province, where you have the spider cave in this area, and this boss spawns as a part of the event. If you are a Catalyst player, you may recognize this event if you have done your specialization weapon collection. Where the event itself isn't anything too extraordinary, it's a spider boss that you fight. But second is her model. She is super cool looking with a bunch of super fun colors and just a really interesting and unique model of spider compared to other spiders we can find in the game. But third is her lore, where this is kind of just a random boss we fight in Saitang province, but there's a lot of backstory to this creature that we learned during this event. To run through some highlights, she is a venomous spider that lived during the events of factions and the Affliction, where she consumed the bodies of those fallen to the plague of the Affliction, which that is just super cool. But it is suggested that she is incredibly old, and maybe older than the events of the Jade Wind, or potentially even older than the human settlement in the Jade Sea, which I think this entire story, on top of her cool model, just makes her a super cool spider boss. In the number 7 spot is the Plastic Spider. It's Shadow the Mad King, so I bet you saw this one coming. Plastic spiders are Halloween creatures that can be found in the Mad King's Labyrinth, the Ascent to Madness, and also coming out in Jakarta in certain areas, where they are one of Mad King Thorn's minions and are just basic creatures that you fight a lot of. If you run through the labyrinth a lot, you're probably very familiar with these creatures and have probably killed them a lot. Where it is fun to see a type of spider during the Shadow of the Mad King festival because it's just super fitting for the themes of this festival. But these spiders are particularly interesting because, as the name suggests, they are made of plastic, where they are basically living toys similar to what we see during Winter's Day. Now at the end of the day, this is probably just a harmless reference to the millions of plastic spiders that circulate around our real world every Halloween, but it is interesting to think about the potential lore implications of Mad King Thorn inventing plastic interior and molding a bunch of minions out of it, or some sort of similar story. Where one final fun detail is that you can see the words Made in Tyria written on the underside of the model, which of course this is just another fun connection back to real plastic spiders, but think of the lore implications. In the number 6 spot are the Cave Spiders and Colossal Broodmother. There are a lot of cave spiders in Guild Wars 2, as are other types of spiders like jungle spiders, forest spiders, barn spiders, and so on and so forth. but a specific group of cave spiders and cave spiderlings can be found during the Legacy Story mission in episode 4 of Living World Season 4, where we have the incredible ruins of the Sunspear Sanctuary that we reclaim to turn it into Sun's Refuge to help out Alona in the fight against Krakatork. But in order to reclaim the sanctuary, we have to clear out the residents who moved in. And who moved into this cave but a bunch of spiders? Where there are a ton of Ixacs all around this area, and just a ton of spiders we have to kill. And by we, I mean you, the player character, as well as Bram. And an incredibly important detail here is that Bram really doesn't like spiders. So as we are clearing through this entire area, Bram is really struggling with this task, and you have to keep hyping him up. But things get so much worse, because the boss of this mission is the Colossal Broodmother, where this is a pretty basic looking spider, which definitely looks cool in its own right, and was actually a spider thought to be extinct in Tyria, but is alive and well in this cave. But poor old Bram gets gobbled up, and the Broodmother will run around the instance with Bram inside of her, and with Bram appropriately being upset about it. In the number 5 spot is Gargantula. This is a spider boss that can be found in Hrathi Hinterlands, which is one part nostalgic and another part just an incredible fantasy vibe. This boss is pretty simple and is from the core game and is pretty easy. Looking at the model herself, she is pretty basic but definitely still cool looking. But I just have a lot of nostalgia with this boss in particular because I vividly remember doing this event way back in the day, and I always think about that memory when I pass through this area and do the event again. But another aspect of this boss that I like a lot are just the vibes. I mean, this entire event is just super cool from a basic fantasy standpoint. We have these slightly dangerous lands that the humans have lived in here and there throughout history. There's a massive war going on with the centaurs, and there are a variety of other fun details spread throughout the map. But near one of the humans' outposts in this relatively dense forest with trees, and in the edge of the mountains, you can find this cave entrance that leads to the spider's den. The spiders are capturing different humans in the forest and taking them back into the den for their broodmother, Gargantula, to consume, where you, the brave adventurer, must come into this forest, free the humans from the webs, and march into the cave to kill the spider. I mean, it's basic, but it's stuff like this that just makes Guild Wars 2 and the world of Tyria feel so cool for so many people. Plus, her name is pretty cool as well. In the number 4 spot are the Super Adventure Box Spiders. I think it's fun we have the Shadow of the Mad King Festival, where we have special festive spiders, but then we also have the Super Adventure Festival, where we got another type of festive spiders, where these spiders can be found all throughout the Super Adventure Box and are basic enemies that you fight. Their basic attack is a spin attack where it will evade your own attacks while dealing damage to you. And of course, since this enemy is in the Super Adventure Box, it is themed around the Super Adventure Box, where this enemy has a super cool model and is wearing sunglasses, has shoes on each of its legs, and just looks like the other creatures you can find around the Super Adventure Box. Every year as SAB comes around, I spend a lot of time playing through this game, and so I interact with these spiders a lot throughout the year. And I just think they are a fun addition to the game that are very different from other spiders we can find throughout the world of Tyria, but still fit into some of the vibes as we can find them throughout the Dark Woods. In the number 3 spot is Dozer. This is a really fun spider that is just a small detail to the game, and when I say small detail, I mean that this is a small detail. Dozer is a tiny little spider that can be found in the Citadel Flame dungeon in the story mode version of the dungeon, where as you clear through the enemies in the dungeon and take over the Flame Legion barracks, Dozer may start following you around. Where this is just a tiny spider that presumably lives inside of the Citadel Flame, and as you and your party come through this area, you will catch the attention of this little guy, and he will just want to follow you around the dungeon. There's not much else to it. You can't kill Dozer, and Dozer will not stop being infatuated by you until you leave the dungeon. You just have a permanent, absolutely adorable addition to your party as you fight the Flame Legion and defeat Geher and Balefire. In the number 2 spot is Malrona. This is a spider boss from the Twilight Arbor dungeon, where the primary reason she is on this list is because she is in fact from that dungeon, since it is my favorite one in the game. Twilight Arbor as a whole has a ton of spider themes going on, and it makes a lot of sense to have a spider boss that we fight in this dungeon, where her model is pretty basic and looks like other cave spiders in the game, but is larger than others, which can definitely feel intimidating. She also has a variety of venom attacks you have to deal with, and ultimately the spider isn't super important when it comes to the lore of the game, but I just have so many memories with this boss. Twilight Arbor is the dungeon that I have done the most of, and I have so many memories of fighting this boss, especially with fighting this boss while 2-manning or soloing this dungeon, which I used to do a lot of several years ago. And I still love coming through this dungeon and fighting her whenever I do Twilight Arbor again, Plus, she adds a lot to the vibes of this dungeon, and she just fits in super well with the rest of the bosses and enemies that you fight throughout here. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite spider in all of Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Brood Queen. This is a powerful boss found in the Deepstone Fractal, and is one of the 2 bosses you can do after recharging the crystal near the start of the fractal, where this entire fractal is a super cool dwarven area with incredible vibes and a ton of mysteries, and the Brood Queen contributes a lot to that, where the fight itself is pretty basic without too much going on, but has some cool vibes with the area you fight her in and all of the spider themed stuff going on. The boss itself is also pretty basic, but shares the model of the Black Widow spiders we have talked about in the number 10 spot, which is cool. But the aspect of this spider that really puts her in the number 1 spot on this list is the dialogue that happens as you fight her, where she communicates in some sort of mysterious language that we, the players, don't know, which by itself is super cool because it is a spider that is communicating, but also communicating in some mysterious tongue. But Kay, the explorer with us during this fight, can understand the words, and the big idea coming from what the spider says is that the dwarves trapped the spiders here, and why the spiders were trapped here is a mystery. But it seems like, based on what is going on, there is something insane going on with this area, and the spiders may be involved somehow, where the spider communicates in the same language as the voice, which is the mysterious final boss in this fractal that we know a little about, but is incredibly mysterious and also super cool. Where we actually know a little bit about this language if we do some digging into the lore of Guild Wars, because in the original Guild Wars, during the Eye of the North expansion, we find an ephemeral spirit in a quest where we are trying to decipher a message from the human gods during a very interesting quest chain. Where in Guild Wars 2, we see a notebook related to this quest from the original Guild Wars that we can translate to discover information about the concepts of magic in Tyria and the interconnectivity of the All, aka the magical system of Tyria, where everything is combined, which was written by the NPC we worked with in the original Guild Wars investigating the ciphers and the ephemeral spirit. So this spider boss in the Deepstone Fractal is communicating in a special language that only one other creature, as well as the voice later on in the fractal, has ever communicated with, where this creature is related to figuring out about the nature of the gods and magic in Tyria, where I think there is a lot more we could talk about here, and I might make a dedicated video on this in the future, but overall, this spider is just super interesting and is my favorite one in all of Guild Wars 2. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. There are a ton of spiders in Guild Wars 2, and I could barely scratch the surface of all the random spider enemies and bosses you can find throughout the game. Large spider enemies are a common part of many fantasy worlds, and it just makes sense that they are a common occurrence across Tyria. If you like this list, consider watching my top 10 insects video or my top 10 frogs video. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.